Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my neighbor is an absolute nightmare. She refuses to believe that I am in fact disabled and even claims I am just faking my misery. She ends up stealing my wheelchair so her entitled brats can play with it. Here is what happened to this entitled Karen. Let's dive right in. The title story goes like this. Right off the bat, full disclosure here, I am 29, female and disabled. While most people may look at me and see a victim, I see myself as a survivor. Certain people may also see me as someone they can take advantage of due to my circumstances, just like Karen tried to do last month. However, that does not mean you have to let them. So, one snowy morning in winter back when I was 9 years old, my school bus slipped on some ice and fell off a bridge. The school got majorly sued when many of the kids were hurt in the accident. While most got away with cuts and bruises, I ended up in the hospital, resulting in having my left leg amputated. Since then, adjusting to my new life has been tough. While I had recently got fitted for a prosthetic leg, I'm still getting used to it, so I still occasionally rely on my wheelchair instead. It's this wheelchair that caused an awful dilemma, dealing with a witch of a neighbor and her crappy kids, but in the end I triumphed, and I hope that serves as a lesson or inspiration to anyone reading this to be brave and strong and persistent through it all. So anyway, it all started when my partner and I first moved into a perfect little HOA neighborhood a couple of miles off from his work. We had been looking for months until this caught our eye and we knew we had to have it. One eye-catching feature was that it was a bungalow, making it very accommodating to me with my disability. A few short months later we were moving in, along with what few possessions we could cram into the back of my dad's van to avoid any added moving costs. We were excited to start a new life and fit into the society around us, but it quickly became clear by repeated warnings from the other neighbors that the family right next to us might have a problem with that. Nerves hidden behind weak smiles and a gift hamper to hide our trembling hands, we knocked on the neighbor's door to make our introductions. We were very keen to make a good first impression and avoid further trouble. A middle-aged woman opened the door, the woman I expected to be Karen. She stood over us in silence as she waited for us to speak up. When we hesitated, she snapped at us in slurred words, and I quickly realized at 2 p.m. she was already drunk. After our introductions, she gave us a dismissive grunt and then in nimble action snatched the hamper as I offered it out to her. With her attention diverted, she moved away from the door, shutting it behind her, and she rifled through the box's contents. We hoped while it was not a great start, we may at least not hear from her again soon, but of course that was too much to hope for. One weekend when my leg was not feeling very stable, I stayed in my wheelchair using it to go outside and check on my partner while gardening. Karen and her kids were out in their yard too, and I had not even realized until prompted that they were gawking at me, or more specifically my wheelchair. I waved awkwardly and headed back inside as she began to head over. She had been arguing about something with my partner. It was short but heated and he followed me in shortly after. He explained that she was accusing me of faking my disability because I'd been walking when I first met her. He got angry and shut her down. The next day my partner left early for work and I had a lie-in, and with not much else I wanted to do on my day off. A sound downstairs finally woke me up and gave me the motivation to get out of bed. I assumed that my partner had come home early, or maybe it was a package I ordered. Passing the hallway and opening the front door, I spotted a few of the neighbors' kids playing with a wheelchair in the street. Not thinking much of it, I turned back inside, my gaze then meeting an empty outline of dust where my own wheelchair used to be. Panic and realization flared in my brain as I left the house and unstably marched down towards the little thieves. As they notice me, they rush back into their house, taking my wheelchair with them. I bang on the door and a few minutes later, Karen opens it. With neither the patience nor composure for pleasantries, I demanded my wheelchair back, raising my voice to her for the first time. When I was done, she still stood at the doorway unaffected, and she told me that she would be keeping it because I did not need it, pointing to my prosthetic. She remarked how good of a toy it was for the kids as she shut the door on me. 2 hours of pacing around the living room later, I saw that the kids had returned to the street, pushing my wheelchair up the hill and then riding it down like it were a sled in the winter. Visibly annoyed, I snatched up the phone and began to dial 911 when I heard an almighty crash outside. At the bottom of the hill lay the dissected remains of my wheelchair resting against the telephone pole that it had crashed into. With bruises and sobs, they hobbled back to Karen with me in hot pursuit. As I inspected the damages outside, Karen came out. Despite every interaction I had with her so far, I could only imagine it would be half-assed apologies. However, instead she harassed me for injuring her kids with my dangerous wheelchair. I told her she could shove her complaints as I walked away. A firm hand against my back sent me tumbling over. Winded and injured, I saw the looming silhouette of Karen above me. She spat on me before deciding to walk away. I slowly rose from the sidewalk as Karen marched triumphantly back to her yard, happy with her small taste of victory for the day. I then hobbled up to her and pulled her around with a firm grip on her shoulder. She spun around in a flash of confusion and anger. Before she could react again, I planted my fist on her chin in a heavy swing, sending her stumbling over as gravity betrayed her. She turned to look up at me, her face twisting in a strange mixture of fear and rage. Fear must have won out in the end as she quickly scurried away back to her house while issuing me the standard warnings or threats I had now become accustomed to. In her absence, a different neighbor approached me to check on me after having witnessed the whole thing, trying to reassure and relax me. Sadly though, the drama was far from over as Karen left her house returning with her cell phone, and with her presence my helpful savior hurried off to avoid her wrath. She explained that she had called the cops and I was gonna be arrested for hitting her. While I was terrified she might actually be right, I kept up my best poker face and told her to bring it on. 20 tense minutes went by as I waited for them on a lawn chair with my partner. Karen appeared first, returning from her house with a bottle of whiskey for a quite premature celebratory drink. By her behavior and the near empty contents, I could see that she was already quite plastered. She passed the time hurling insults at me, and I did my best to ignore her, as I expected that hurt her the most. It turns out I was right. During her verbal assault, I saw the police car around the corner and approach, so I stood to meet them. Karen must have been too wrapped up to notice, because next thing I felt was a crash of glass against the back of my head and I fell to the floor. I must have blacked out for a little while, because the next thing I knew, I was staring up at my partner while I could hear Karen screaming at a cop nearby. Luckily, she attacked me in full view, giving the cops an easy reason to focus on her. When the cops were clearly more interested in her attacking me than the other way around, she tried to go back inside her house and shut them out, only to be stopped and arrested for not being cooperative. Before they left, I decided to press charges, making sure she would finally pay. A week later, following a series of short court trials, she is sentenced to 2 years in jail for harassment and violent assault. The CPS also got involved with the case when they heard children were involved, swiftly removing custody when they found her unsuitable to parent them. And yeah guys, obviously in this case, while it is sad for the kids to not have a mother anymore, at least for a while, it might be for the better for them to stay with relatives or something for a while, since this mother was clearly no good. She was a raging, entitled alcoholic, and I don't think she took good care of her kids. Let's hope they have a better future than her mother. Either way, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. And now let's move on to the next one. This one is titled, Neighbor Crashes Her Car, Calls Police to Blame Me for Damages. I have no idea if the Karens are multiplying or if they are just getting more confident in the crap that they pull. Either way, I feel like every neighborhood has at least one entitled Karen, and mine lives 2 doors down from me. She is a pain in the neck for everybody on the block, but in the past years has never done anything too extreme. For example, one time I lent my neighbor a couple of eggs because she was baking and ran out. When she got wind of it, she decided to make some story up that I was having an affair with my neighbor, but obviously nobody believed her. Well, anyway, she exists with the sole purpose to create problems and chaos. One place I did not think I would end up having a problem with her would be sitting inside on my computer watching Netflix. So I heard a crash outside and look out my window to see what happened. Her car, a bright red convertible had smashed into the fire hydrant that sits on my property. I might not like the woman, but I run outside to see if she needs help or if she needs an ambulance called. Instead of telling me that she is fine or hurt, she decides to start screaming at me. From the moment she starts talking though, I can smell the booze on her breath. Karen, look what you did to my car. The front bumper is ruined because of you. Me, I was inside my house. How exactly do you think this is my fault? Karen, you put that thing on your lawn. Without that, I wouldn't have gotten in the accident. I think about $6,000 should cover the expenses. Me, you're out of your mind if you think I'm giving you a penny. I feel bad you crashed, but it's not my fault. Karen, you had your chance. I'm calling the police and making sure they throw you in jail for this. Then I'm gonna sue you for $1 million. I thought it was a bluff, but she really did call the police saying that I destroyed her car and caused an accident. I was not worried one bit because the evidence was literally in front of them. The police seemed just as confused and asked her how I destroyed her car when I was not even driving anything. She told them that I had just placed the hydrant there and it was intentionally placed to get her killed. It was a city hydrant though, so I had nothing to do with it being placed, which was problem number one with her story. For second, it was on the grass, meaning that she would have had to swerve off the street in order to hit it. And finally, the police could also smell the alcohol on her breath. Police, while this is his property, he has no fault for what happened. I can tell you were driving drunk though. That combined with the misuse of emergency services means that you're gonna come down to the station with us. The car is getting towed and sir, I recommend you go back into your home. I did what he asked and listened as Karen told them that she wanted me arrested as well. It was nuts, but the story doesn't stop there because she didn't stay at the station for very long. In her mind, I had wronged her and she deserved to get some revenge on me. I still have no idea why after she sobered up she still thought it was my fault, but I don't understand crazy psychos. Anyway, in the back of my driveway, I have my 1965 Buick Rivera. It's a beautiful classic car that I have spent many days keeping in prime condition. Me having something nice like that was gonna be Karen's target. Obviously, at the time, I had no idea that she wanted revenge because she didn't try and threaten me in her typical Karen fashion. One thing to note is that I do have cameras back there, so once I found out what she did, I was able to look at the past recording and find her face clear as day. And basically, one night she went back there with a knife and some spray paint. With the knife, she basically slashed all the tires and made big scraps along the sides of the car. Then with the spray paint, she wrote words like liar, thief and a-hole on it. Then she just walked away thinking that she got some perfect revenge and I was not ever gonna find out. You can imagine when I saw the car, I was devastated, and the more I looked at the damage, the more upset I got. I had spent years working on that car and now it looked like it belonged in the junkyard. I even found out she went underneath at some point and used a knife to cut everything she could. When I saw it was her, I was so mad I wanted to walk over to her house and destroy something of hers. I knew I had to be smart about this instead though, so I took the video evidence and filed a police report. I explained that she trespassed on my property and destroyed my car that was worth about $60,000. It turns out the cop was also a car guy and he hated seeing the damage done almost as much as I did. I also told them she got arrested and blamed me for it, so that might be her motive for it. They told me this plus what happened earlier in the week was enough for them to arrest her. I went home and waited until I saw the sirens flashing and stopping at Karen's house. She subsequently was arrested for trespassing and destruction of property. I guess last time she was arrested but did not have any kind of charges pressed, maybe to try and scare her. This time though, she was not gonna get out of the station anytime soon because she was gonna have to stay there until a judge did a bail hearing and everything. On top of that, I had to take her to court for the value of my classic car that she destroyed. With me, I was able to show the appraisal of how much my car was worth in its condition before she touched it. It came out to about $55,000 and she was ordered to pay me that amount. I did not have to scrap the car, but even once it was fixed and the parts replaced, it would never be worth what it could have been otherwise. It was gonna cost me most of that just to get in the parts and supplies I needed in order to fix it back up to somewhat decent shape. I was not at the trial where she got in trouble for the charges the police arrested her for though. But I did find out the charges of misusing emergency services and driving drunk did come up in court after all. I really hope that she would do jail time, but I also know rich white women don't always do time. She ended up being under house arrest for a while and forced to attend AA meetings to stay sober. Finally, once she can legally leave the house, she is ordered to stay away from me and my home. The final thing was that the hydrant she hit needed a part replaced and it was gonna be on her to pay for it. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious if you ever had to deal with a crazy neighbor in your own life. I'm curious what you did. Have you ever had to call the police on them? Let us know in the comments. Neighbors built an illegal trailer park next to my property and created a giant mountain of trash. This is a story about how I got the best revenge imaginable on the people that used to be my neighbors. I use that term loosely because first of all, the land next to my property was not owned by anybody, but that did not stop this family from parking their 3 trailers there. I don't really have high standards for people because I'm a farmer and I know that some rich snobs probably look down on me as well. These people though were next level and spent their days drinking, screaming, cursing and more drinking. It turned out that they actually did have a job and owned a waste removal company. I guess they were just busy spending all the money on beer. I also saw plenty of lotto tickets lying around that I can only assume came from them. Now, I basically hated these neighbors and wanted exactly zero to do with them. They were not on my land, so I just tried to mind my own business and take care of what I needed to do. I have some chickens, some cows and a small area for vegetables. I just wanted to be out here living my best life despite them. The first problem though happened when I caught one of them trying to steal my chicken. One night I heard a ruckus and went outside to see one of them near where I fence in my chicken coop trying to cut it open. I can only assume the plan was to steal a chicken, but the second that he saw me, this guy bolted back to his trailer. I could not ignore these people and had to keep on high alert in case they tried to pull anything else. That was not the only issue with these neighbors though. I understand that some people are not exactly neat, heck, I'm a little messy myself. Now, since they did not own the land, they did not actually get trash picked up by the town and instead had to deal with it themselves. This ranged from them moving it out where I keep my garbage to doing nothing at all. I did not care if they put trash out with mine because it was getting taken away anyway. I guess it became too hard for them though because they just started letting things pile up outside near the property line. A mountain of trash started to form and I was disgusted going anywhere near that side of my property. It was a huge health hazard and that was when I decided I had enough with these guys. I was going to get some revenge and teach them a lesson. Now, since they were very loud, I could always hear them bragging among themselves how they did not declare any taxes for their business. This way, they did not pay anything for it and talked about how much money they would save doing this. I used this knowledge to my advantage and made a little call to the IRS that the company doing waste management for most of the town was not declaring anything. I knew after a while this took effect because I could hear them yelling from one trailer to the other about the IRS auditing them and which one of them let it slip what was going on. They did not even suspect I had anything to do with it, and I was not done yet. The next thing, I don't know if I would really classify it as revenge or just doing the right thing. I know that I briefly mentioned how horrible the conditions these people were living in were before, but I neglected to say that they had kids living there too. Kids that I never saw go to school and were mostly kept locked in the trailers all day and night. Kids that were always dirty and surrounded by adults just getting drunk and leaving trash everywhere. They were mostly kept in the trailers and the few times I saw a kid, they looked sick to me. I could not just look at this and do nothing about it, instead I called Child Protective Services about my concern. A black car pulled up and a lady in a suit started knocking on the doors of the trailers and speaking to the people inside. I guess the conditions were bad enough that they actually took the kids away. I know that foster care is not the best environment, but please trust me when I say that I was not getting their kids taken away as some sort of sick revenge. They clearly were not being cared for and I was not going to just sit around and watch that display. In fact, seeing that made me even angrier at them and wanted to give them one last piece of revenge. This one bigger than anything else. Since I had livestock and crops, it was within my rights to have a nice big compost pile on my property, courtesy of my cows. I decided that the perfect place to put it would be right on the property line between me and the trailer park neighbors. For those that don't know what these compost piles smell like, you don't want to know. Farmers are a little more used to it, but these people certainly had this as a new smell for them. I had not seen them hanging outside of their trailers for a couple of weeks because it smelled too bad for them to go outside. For the first time in months, I did not hear screaming and cursing coming from them. I guess the smell finally got too much for them because that was the final straw for them to pack up their trailers and move out. I drove them away and I did not feel bad about it one bit. They did not own the land, were making it a disgusting place and even dragging innocent children into the whole thing. I don't want to know what they did after that, but I want to think and believe the best. I want to imagine that they got their acts together and found a better place to live. I want to imagine they were able to get their children back and treat them right from then on. The only thing I do know for sure was that their company was not in charge of the town waste management anymore, and looking up online, I could not find them anymore. So they either went bankrupt or started up again under a different name and let the scam continue. All I know is that I am enjoying the peace and quiet that I bought this land for in the first place. The chickens and cows are the only neighbors that I need at the end of the day. If someone buys that piece of land, good, but if someone else takes it over and starts trouble, I have no problems getting some revenge again. And yeah, Ripe Stars, as seasoned veterans of Reddit, we all know you just never mess with a farmer. That is lesson number 1, and you should always remember it. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then please don't forget to check out my endless playlist, which has thousands of videos and hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.